the pressures of our lives usually produce certain actions, and now we can do something different. So that's what embodied transformation is about for me. I can do something different than I was once able to do, not just think about it. So what even is embodiment? I use the word embodiment. I will say I do somatic work. I will use the word somatics. But I often think, I kind of think about somatics as the challenge has been the way we have disconnected ourselves from the wisdom of the body and relationships and of the collective body. And somatics is the kind of understanding of that, but we don't actually get somatics unless we first have the rupture. And I think somatics is really important, but it's also, to me, indicative of a deep rupture that we've had in our societies. Embodiment, I use the word to mean all the practices, all the things we think about in somatics, but also referencing the cultural practices and ways of knowing that precede or have persisted through the violence that many of our communities have experienced. So all the practices of embodiment that we do is not just in the canon of somatics as we understand it, but the referencing what the before wisdom that we can access, that we can practice, that we can learn from, that precedes the kind of rupture and violence. So first, let me define embodiment, and we'll get into some of the context. But embodiment's this weird word because we use it in a lot of different ways. People can say, I'm embodied, or I'm doing an embodiment practice, or what do I want to be embodied in? And it has this kind of changing orientation, this word. But I think about embodiment, one, as the growing awareness of our bodily sensations, patterns, habits, beliefs. When we talk about like being embodied, we're talking about being in a kind of awareness of what our bodies are doing, expressing, being in the world, and the felt sensation of that. It's an awareness that is felt necessarily. Embodiment is also about how the body learns. So think about this as an example. Something that you learned. Okay, so in college, I went through a knitting phase, which I think maybe everyone does in college. I did. I went through a knitting phase where I made really bad scarves for about 6 months and then gave up. And at first, when I was learning to knit, when my friend was teaching me to knit, it was like, okay, see, I don't even actually remember how to knit. I can't verbally say it, but if you give it to me in my hands, I can do it. But you're like, oh, you have to go under this and around this and pull this through, right? You learn how to knit this way. And for the first, I don't know, it took a while, days, maybe weeks. I'm almost narrating it so that I can understand, because we may say over, under, through. This is the same teaching my kid about how to tie her shoe. The actual motion is many, many motions, many, many things I have to learn how to do. Okay, the relationship, the angle at which I do these things, I'm learning a bunch of micro skills inside of that. But I keep practicing and making mistakes, and I gotta undo it. I have to go back and unravel it, and then I have to try again. But there comes a point where I no longer have to narrate it to myself. I no longer have to think through each step, because my body has learned a set of movements and relationships that are knitting. And so now I can knit and talk. I can knit and talk on the phone. I can knit and watch television. I can add complexity because I have embodied knitting. I've learned it on the deepest level. Does that make sense what I'm saying to y'all? We learn things just as we learn any other skill. We learn how to express. We learn how to be with the context that we're in. So we learn, I talk about this in the book, we also learn the social norms of our time. We learn who do we listen to and who do we not listen to. We learn in our context that that's what keeps us safe. That's what's important. We learn to do that. Maybe some of us resist that, or we're in a reactivity to that, but we learn through how we relate to one another.